Hey everybody, good morning. Good morning, people. It is spiritual healthcare. Oh my goodness. Day 52. Day 52. Welcome. It is good to be here. It is good to be here this morning to see everybody. This is gonna be such a good class this morning. I'm stoked and excited about this because one of the things that I see so often with paranormal research and clients and just people in general is the mentality of victimhood, victims. So we're going to talk about that today. Welcome, good morning. How are you? Hope you guys are doing amazing today. We've got lots to chat about this morning. Whether you're an investigator, whether you're whether you're just somebody moving through life like the rest of us, this day is for you. This day is for you. Good morning, guys. This is so good to see you all. So nice to see everybody coming in this morning. And this might be, you might see yourself today in this class. You might see yourself. So that's a pre-warning. This is a pre-warning. This is a not only a lesson about other people but introspective as well. Good morning, everyone. It is so nice to see you. I hope you guys had a great evening yesterday, and today is the weather is looking a little bit better here in Edmonton. I don't know what it's doing where you guys are. I know most of you guys come in from the States. We still get a few people from Canada and whatnot, but it's nice to see all of you. I hope you guys are enjoying the new season of Paranormal 911, which has been on over the last number of weekends, which has been great. It's aired in Canada now for quite a while, and I'm hearing good things from everybody, which is really cool. The case that was on this past weekend that I worked on, which was one of my favorites, was the fellow who had passed away and had the do not resuscitate order, and that is such an interesting case where you've got a spirit that is asserting, exactly who they are, exactly what they want, and it's just it was really cool, and the paramedic that was listening to all of that and was so connected in with non-physical and got those messages and heard the do not resuscitate order. It was pretty cool. So so it was a great class, or a great episode for me to do. Good morning, guys. Morning, Will and Sally and Wes and Marge and Patricia. Everybody, it's so good to see all of you. As I say, today we're talking about something I know everybody can relate to. Investigators I know that come on here every morning, I know you guys will definitely be able to relate to this as well. We're going to be talking about the idea and the mentality behind victimhood, the addiction to lack, and what exactly does that mean, and what does that look like when it comes to the paranormal as well? What does that translate into non-physical in our world when we have this lack-based thinking, and we've got to be the victim in situations? Because man, it is so prevalent. It is so prevalent. People want to be the victim because it does make it. They think it makes it easier, right? They think it makes things easier because it gives them a chance to lack responsibility. So I ended up writing a chapter in my book, Teaching the Living, about victimhood, because hauntings, interestingly enough, are the one area in our lives where people seem to think that they are asserted on us rather than something that is attracted or works through us, which is always fascinating to me. People don't understand the correlation between their thinking and between what's manifesting, and it's always very interesting to watch. They have a complete disconnect, especially when it comes to the paranormal, because we're so taught that it is something that is so separate from who we are and so separate from ourselves, which is not the case at all. My friend Dr. Cal Cooper, he's always said he hates the word supernatural, and Cal is a clinical parapsychologist at the University of Northampton. He does this for a living, and it's a teacher and all sorts of things. And he always hates the word supernatural because it's just not supernatural at all. It's some of the most natural things in the world. But we've learned to disconnect and remove ourselves from it. And oftentimes when I'll be sitting down with clients, and this is always so interesting, they absolutely remember or begin to associate and remember the idea of these old ghost stories and things like that. People living or wandering into some haunted home, and then all of this stuff just happens, and they think that everything is random, right? They think it's all random, and it's not random at all. So victimhood, how does this play into clients? What does this look like? And how does it play into our everyday experience? Why does it happen? And I'll tell you my observations about it. And looking from the client perspective, every once in a while I will end up getting a client or something like that who will come along, and they are more invested in the idea that they are being victimized by some sort of haunting than they are in finding out the solution, even when the solution is not doesn't have a paranormal answer to it. So for example, I'll get a situation where somebody will come in and, be asking for my help, be convinced that their place is haunted and all of this stuff is going on around them. And then they'll turn around and, you'll give them an answer. Maybe it's, high electromagnetics in the house that's causing sleep problems, or causing them to see things out of the corner of their eye, or something like that. It's like some sort of natural explanation for it. And they will fight for the idea that place is haunted and ignore the recommendation completely. Another scenario that I see very often is they will take the advice, take the solution. I will put them on my program, which is Teaching the Living, and they just simply refuse to do the work. They will not do the work, even though that is the path to getting what they want. They just will refuse to do the work. And it's very interesting, because it's not long after that, usually, I'll touch base with them after a week or two, and they will call back and tell, oh yeah, program didn't work, don't know what to do, don't know what you're talking about. And every single time it's because they've made the choice to not invest and start the process to moving forward. So when we see stuff like this happen, and this happens in more than just the paranormal world, you guys probably have this in your experience with different people. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's people you're working with, where there is just a refusal to help themselves, help you, help whatever it is, and they've got a long list of everything that's going wrong in their experience. But as soon as that solution's offered, they reject it, and sometimes they get just mad as hell. They will get mad as hell at you. So what is going on? What is going on with this mentality? Because it seems so foreign, to people like myself, but probably to a lot of you guys, because that's why you're here, as to why you would not seek some solution-oriented behavior. What is going on? And I had a great discussion. It was almost all-day discussion yesterday about this. And what we discovered was that victims have a mindset that they really believe that they're owed something. And it goes beyond even just the simple idea that they're feeling like they are owed some sort of energetic exchange from us, whether it be money, whether it be commiseration and attention for the problem, whether it be, who knows, whatever that is for that person. But they believe that they have to be in deficit because they simply just don't feel enough as they are. They just don't. So they've got to have a problem. So that deficit becomes their currency. Everybody's got a currency. So when we look at that, sometimes for people that are dealing with hauntings and things like that, what's fascinating is that what'll happen is that some people will make the haunting and the attention that they're getting from the haunting their currency. So they'll call for help. They want people to come in. They want people to investigate. They want to know the answers. But as soon as a solution's put on the table, either the solution's wrong, they don't want to invest in it, they won't do the work, and then they'll tell you you need to come back. All sorts of crazy things that they'll tell you. But it's because they are sitting in that deficit. They have to feel. They sit there thinking, if you feel bad for me, then that puts faith into that empty hole. A lot of people that are sitting in victimhood really don't have the faith in themselves that they can generate that abundance. So as people, as we move through this life experience and we come to more and more of an understanding and trust in that non-physical energy and our ability to create a reality, the more that we have that and are able to build up that faith that this is something that is reliable, a lot of people that sit and play the victim or are willing to play that role don't have that motion forward within their thinking. They just don't. So in order to get what they're looking for from other people, they feel like, your attention to my problem, that attention to that deficit that they're clinging to becomes something that is invaluable to them. And if they don't have it, then they don't feel like they're going to be able to get that attention. So, as I say, this is something with hauntings that we have to be really careful of. And the reason why is that sometimes we will get a case, and I've had a couple of these, where the person that is sometimes being victimized by the energy that's in the house or the intelligence that's in the house, they will have these situations play out where it's quite dangerous, that there's frightening things that are happening, there's physical violence that's happening, and all sorts of just crazy stuff like this, and they will cling on to that deficit. They will cling on to that deficit so that they can know and make sure that they've got that currency that's flowing all the time, which is the attention they're getting for it. And it's a really dysfunctional way of being. But we've had a number of cases that have been like that. Again, it seems so foreign. It doesn't seem to make any sense. But as soon as they're offered the solution, again, it's either rejected or not worked on. And as I say, you guys have probably had this experience with people in your life as a whole anyway, because as I say, it doesn't just extend to paranormal issues; it extends to a bunch. So part of the reason that this happens is that people like this, their worth is always tied directly into relation with other people. Every time, the lack of sense of self-worth, all of this self-worth stuff that we've been working on over the last 52 days of spiritual healthcare, that lack of self-worth will allow space for a victim story. It really will. Now, I have to make clear, there's a difference between being victimized by something like a horrible attack or a bombing or something like that, and the story that you tell about it. And what I'm talking about here is the story that we're telling ourselves about the events that have happened to us. Victimization is a state of mind. It's really something that it's not necessarily tied to an event that has happened. But it's the story that we tell ourselves, and people think that being a victim is about something that has physically happened to us, but it really isn't. It's the story we tell ourselves about it. There's many people who have been through just incredible experiences that have been awful and life-changing. And comes a point when we've experienced that trauma where we get to choose the story that we're going to be telling ourselves about what it is that has happened. And that's where the process of either choosing that victimization or moving forward and using that as an experience that has tuition that we can learn from really begins to take hold. So many of these people have trouble with that internal worth. And because of that, they have trouble standing in their truth. They have a really hard time. Their personal truth, that truth you tell yourself when you're laying in bed at night, when there's nobody around, when you don't have that social mask on, the truth you tell yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning is broken in some way. So in terms of them being able to sit in their experience and just be able to be okay, similar to what we talked about yesterday, of being okay with who you are and where you're at, even if it's not where you want to be yet. they have a really hard time being able to sit in that personal truth. And some of them don't even know what it is. They're just not consciously aware of it. And one of the reasons for that is what I mentioned before. They're so concerned about that external validation. They're looking for you to be able to tell them what that personal truth is. And in order to do that, they will cling to something like victimization and tell you a million things that are wrong with them. And it's not a good state to be in. When the only value and worth that you can have is being owed, then it is the only way that you can understand abundance. And it's such a key thing to be able to understand when it comes to people who love to be victimized or love to tell that story, is that their understanding of abundance and their understanding of the only way that they can get to that abundance, whether it be money, whether it be attention or love or energy or anything like that, because they believe that your attention and your focus on their problem is the only way that they can get that abundance, when you come to them with a solution, oftentimes they will be mad as hell at you for it. Because in their heads, oftentimes what we'll see is they see it as you removing that ability to get that attention and source of abundance. So because they don't have anything to fill that space up, because that's the dynamic that they've learned, then we've got a problem in terms of how they're shaping their worldview. And I've noticed this with clients quite frequently. Because their belief is in lack, because their belief is in the lack of trust in themselves, trust in other people, trust in the world around them, trust in non-physical, trust in their own truth, then that belief that they can have that abundance just by being who they are, it's not there. It's not there. It hasn't even hit their radar. Because all they see in their belief is in lack. And usually they can't get to the level of abundance. They usually can't see it. Sometimes it's because they've not seen it in their lifetime. Sometimes that's just it. Sometimes they just want to get to neutral. Neutral is good enough for a lot of people that are like this. So sometimes in terms of hauntings, it looks like, just one day that maybe only a few things end up happening, that are frightening or terrifying. Well, that's good enough. And then they stop at good enough. Their bar for what is happy or joyful or blissful, it's just not there. Darren is saying, misery loves company, and Will is saying they don't want the answer, they want your energy. Yeah, exactly. And they want, because they've learned that is what a concept that seems to fill the gap. The problem is when you want to be the victim, number one, there are tons of people out there who will gladly help you be the victim. There are a lot of them out there. Let me tell you, it sets you up. It sets you up for people to find you and victimize you. It really does. If you want to be the victim, the universe will gladly accommodate. And they do tend to want the energy of others because they don't know how to manufacture it on their own. They really don't understand it. So because they get to neutral and they can't get themselves up here to abundance and joy and all of those things, what happens is that they start being okay with just breaking even energetically. They just start to be, they're fine with that. And when they get to that point, the problem is it's not enough because they're just not happy. So they've got to find a reason as to, why you owe them, why the world owes them, all of that kind of thing. And then once they get their fix again, they go back to neutral, which sends them back into lack, and that lack-based thinking, and they start all over again. It just becomes a vicious cycle. This cycle, it just doesn't allow for abundance, and because this is their worldview, the worldview is very limited, with people who have a habit and a way of being that has been constructed around victimization. When it doesn't fit their worldview, they want to fight it. They want to fight against it. And we see this in politics. We see this in, even with the pandemic going on right now. Of course, we see it with haunted places and things like that. People will fight tooth and nail just to be right, over a lot of this. And as soon as that, because when you're introducing abundance into somebody's world that is just simply not used to abundance, that, doesn't understand it, is so foreign to them, it doesn't exist, then oftentimes they want to fight against it. And it's very interesting. It just doesn't make sense to them. That's why often, you'll see leaders and people coming forward and saying, let's offer this class, or offer this benefit, or offer this, and you'll get a pushback, even though it's going to serve people, even though it's going to, enrich people's lives. If it's that piece of abundance that it doesn't fit into that circle, that worldview, they're going to fight it. It just doesn't make sense to them, and it becomes very threatening because they don't know what to do with it. So what is this created by? What is this, what does this look like? Why does this happen? And from what I've observed, there's a few different things. One of the big ones is they don't feel worthy. They just don't feel worthy. They don't know that they can create their own abundance. They don't know that they can create their own happiness. They don't know the power of who they are. They just don't. They might not have been taught to them. They may have been in circumstances where it just wasn't apparent to them, or it was diminished or demeaned in some way. Their faith in the universe's ability to catch them is lacking often. So there's lack of faith in that, lack of faith in themselves. And then it becomes apparent that the only way for them to generate that worth, to generate that validation from others, is the mistaken idea that you have to create lack in order to get that. We see this in a number of different scenarios. Sometimes it's people that, will create medical problems over and over and over again. Some people, as I say, they'll hang on to this idea that their house is haunted or something like that. And sometimes I'll get a client, this is interesting. Sometimes I will get a client who will turn around and, they'll state they've got a problem, and they'll say, I've been to a bunch of other people. Nobody's been able to help me. I'm hoping that you're going to be able to help. And what's fascinating about those people is that as you start to do a deep dive into their past, sometimes I'll get a hold of the past investigators, to find out, what did you do? What did you do, with these people? What did you do different? And oftentimes the response that I'll get back is, they just weren't willing to work with us. They weren't willing to help themselves. They weren't willing to work with us. And we couldn't go any further with them. So when we see that line of serial help that has been reached out for, we have to be mindful of it. Think about some of the red flags here, that you can start to watch out for. And people that are like this, let me tell you, because usually, as I say, they're always asking for something. They're usually asking for, they're always broke, or they're asking for money all the time, and they're complaining about a million health problems, and you get on the phone with them and they've got, 8 or 9 health problems right on the tip of their tongue, and they got to tell you about all of them. Usually if they ask how you are, you can't get a word in edgewise anyway. So we've all had the experience with them. But what we have to be very careful of is that when we've got people like this in our experience, and every time that we take that phone call, or we engage with them on that level, we have to be very conscious to not enable the behavior. So one of the things that I've recommended to clients, because sometimes I'll get a client who, they've got these kinds of people in their experience, and in order to clean up the haunting, of course, we know we have to clean up our environment. And one of the things that I recommend to them, and the process here that I'm going to give you guys today, is to be able to practice the conversation of, what, I don't want to talk about this, this particular issue anymore. And if you start to talk about this issue again, the conversation is going to end. And sometimes that might mean walking out of their house. If you're over at their house, it might mean, I'm out. I don't want to talk about this anymore. So that might be a process that you guys can start to work with. Set the boundary. be clear, set the boundary. Start that boundary at the beginning of the conversation. Be like, you know what? I know you're not feeling good, but I understand that, and we don't need to hash that out, because when we do, I'm not helping you see your well-being. I'm just not. And my job is to help you see your well-being because I love you. So you start with that conversation. It doesn't have to be nasty, but start with that boundary and say, for you, I am not willing to see you as anything but well. I'm just not willing to see you as anything but well, because I know your abundance better than you do. And start there, set that boundary, and don't be afraid to say, sorry, no, we already talked about this at the beginning of the phone call. We're not going to have this discussion. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And it doesn't take long before they realize that the currency starts to change. It starts to become abundance and truth and focus on wellness instead. Some people, you're not going to have this work on them. Some people, they don't want anything to do with that. They're going to get mad, and that's okay, because being mad never killed anybody. So it's one of those things where, we really have to decide what these people are bringing into our environment. And if that energy is too grabby and takey and all of the, either put the wall up, put the boundary up, or say, I can't do this anymore. And that's okay. You don't have to explain it, because that's, we have that right. We don't have to justify that. So I wanted to read you guys a brief excerpt from Life Code. It's from Life Code, but the excerpt is actually by Theodore Roosevelt, and I thought this was so brilliant because it really does have to do with not only not being a victim, and it's such a great statement about not being a victim, but also not tolerating that criticism that often comes with people who are victims or tend to want to be victims as well. So check this out. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself for a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. That's Theodore Roosevelt, you guys. So good. So good. And I love it. I love it. So that being said, the to-do that I'm going to leave you guys with, I'm going to post this on Entity Seeker on the Facebook page here so you guys can find it, is a prayer called I Am Not the Victim. I Am Not the Victim. And it's by Miss Iyanla Vanzant, who we've been reading a lot about. And it is brilliant. It's a wonderful way to be able to just take a breath and refocus and realize that it's about how we tell the story. So I'm going to post that and leave that on Entity Seeker, the Facebook page, so you guys can find it and listen to it. It's a video, and it's fantastic. It's really, really cool. So Brandy was saying it's the Daring Greatly speech from Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, exactly. So those of you guys who are familiar with the book Daring Greatly and Brene Brown, you'll recognize that right off the bat. So that being said, you guys, our health affirmations for the afternoon, because we got to do them. Everybody take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and they know how to achieve their individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. There's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. Well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body, and my cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive, and Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe, and I can do that easily. And everybody take a breath. Tomorrow, guys, tomorrow on Spiritual Healthcare, we're going to be touching on a big topic, which we see a lot with the paranormal and we see a lot in our day-to-day experience, and that is shame. We're going to be talking about that and how it plays into the paranormal world of how we are taught as kids to sort of put these experiences down and dealing with shame and dealing with the vulnerability that comes with that, and the vulnerability of surrender, being able to open ourselves to the new experience that non-physical has to offer us. We're going to be going through all of that tomorrow and see how it also plays out in our world from various experiences in our life and how to deal with it. So we've got a big subject matter tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that being said, go into your day working on all of that we talked about today. Pay attention to your story. How are you telling your story about things that have happened to you, and how can you reframe it when it comes to being the victim? We're not the victim. We are creators. We are deliberate creators. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning, Spiritual Healthcare. If you guys want the past classes of Spiritual Healthcare, youtube.com/entityseeker or entityseeker.ca, and you can find all of our past classes, all 52 of them now. So, there it is. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.